First contact and invasion. The morning sun cast golden ripples across Lake Michigan as Dr. Ilara Chen adjusted her microscope. The University of Chicago's Lakeside Laboratory offered a breathtaking view, but today she barely noticed it. Her research on extremophile bacteria might revolutionize medicine. Bacteria that thrived in the most hostile environments on Earth might hold secrets to fighting antibiotic-resistant infections. At 36, Ilara had already earned international recognition for her work. Born to Chinese immigrants who valued education above all else, she devoted her life to understanding Earth's smallest inhabitants. The most overlooked organisms often hold the greatest power, she often told her students. Little did she know how prophetic those words would become. The first sign came not with dramatic explosions or darkened skies, but with silence. All communication systems worldwide simultaneously failed. Cell phones, internet, satellite transmissions, gone in an instant. For 8 minutes and 43 seconds, humanity collectively held its breath. Then they appeared. Ships like massive obsidian arrowheads pierced the atmosphere over every major city. Their surfaces absorbed light rather than reflected it, creating unnatural shadows that seemed to bend reality around them. No warnings, no demands, just presence, immediate and overwhelming. "They're beautiful," whispered Ilara's research assistant, Marcus, as they watched the Chicago ship hover over the skyline from their laboratory window. "Beautiful things are often the most dangerous," Ilara replied, her voice steady despite the primal fear gripping her spine. The vessels hung motionless for nearly an hour. News channels broadcast nothing but live feeds of the ships. Governments issued conflicting statements. Military jets circled at safe distances, but took no action. The world waited. When the slaughter began, it happened with terrible efficiency. The Vexteri, as they would later identify themselves in global broadcasts, emerged from their ships in swarms. They moved with the fluid precision of apex predators, their bodies protected by chitinous exoskeletons that shimmered with iridescent blues and purples. Standing 9 feet tall, with 4 arms ending in razor-sharp appendages and sensory organs arranged in patterns humans couldn't comprehend, they resembled nothing from Earth's evolutionary tree. They weren't interested in conquering. They didn't want Earth's resources or to enslave its population. The Vexteri had evolved as cosmic predators, traveling between habitable worlds to feed. Humans were simply their next meal, a particularly abundant one. Chicago fell in less than 3 hours. New York in 2. Tokyo, London, Cairo, all overrun before sunset reached their time zones. The Vexteri moved through urban centers with horrifying speed, their advanced technology disabling most conventional weapons. They communicated through subsonic frequencies that caused nausea and disorientation in humans, giving them additional advantage in close combat. Ilara and Marcus escaped the university during the initial attack, retreating to an abandoned CDC emergency bunker 30 miles outside the city that only Ilara had access to. Her work with potentially dangerous bacteria had required security clearances that now saved their lives. "They're not just killing randomly," Ilara observed on the 3rd day, analyzing footage captured by surviving camera networks. "They're harvesting, taking specific organs and fluids." "You're saying we're livestock," Marcus said, his voice hollow. "I'm saying they see us as a resource," she corrected. "And that gives us an advantage." While governments crumbled and militaries fought losing battles, Ilara focused on what she knew best: microorganisms. The bunker contained enough equipment for basic research, and she had managed to bring samples from her lab. On day 5, she discovered something extraordinary. The Vexteri left behind traces of their own biology: microscopic skin cells, fluids that reacted violently to certain Earth bacteria, specifically to the extremophiles she'd been studying for years. Their biology evolved in completely different conditions, she explained to Marcus. "Our bacteria are as alien to them as they are to us. But while they've developed technology to protect them from our macroscopic threats, They've never encountered our microlam. The realization spread like wildfire through surviving scientific communities, connected through jury-rigged communication systems. Humanity's first effective weapon wasn't nuclear missiles or laser technology. It was the invisible army of microorganisms that had evolved alongside humans for billions of years. The Defiance formed organically, with Ilara as one of its scientific leaders. Operating from hidden bunkers and abandoned facilities, they began developing biological countermeasures. Survivors learned to cultivate specific bacterial cultures that proved toxic to Vextari biology. Concentrated solutions became weapons, capable of penetrating the invaders' exoskeletons and causing systemic failure. Resistance cells formed across the globe. Former soldiers, scientists, teachers, artists. People with no common background except humanity, united under necessity. They communicated through old radio frequencies and Morse code, technologies so primitive the Vextari didn't bother monitoring them. The first successful counterattack came on day 17 in the ruins of Berlin. A Defiance cell led by former Bundeswehr Colonel Liesel Hauer deployed homemade aerosol weapons containing concentrated bacteria cultures. The targeted Vextari hunting party collapsed within minutes, their armor-like skin dissolving from contact. Similar successes followed in Cairo, Singapore, and Vancouver. The Vextari, accustomed to quick harvests on defenseless worlds, found themselves facing resistance unlike anything in their evolutionary history. They're adapting, Ilara noted 2 months into the invasion. Vextari forces now wore protective coverings over their vulnerable sensory organs. They altered their hunting patterns, avoided areas where they'd encountered resistance. They're intelligent predators, but they've never needed to evolve beyond instinct. They've never faced prey that fights back effectively. Marcus, now operating as a field agent after receiving training from military survivors, returned from a reconnaissance mission with crucial intelligence. They're building processing centers, converting skyscrapers in the city centers to massive storage facilities. For humans, Ilara asked, dreading the answer. And they're changing their tactics. They're not just harvesting anymore. They are trying to farm us. The revelation galvanized the Defiance. Humanity wouldn't become cattle. Resistance cells coordinated worldwide operations targeting these processing centers. They weaponized Earth itself, its microbes, its terrain, its weather patterns, in ways the Vextari couldn't anticipate. In Chicago, Ilara led a dangerous mission into her old university laboratory. The facility had been partially converted into a Vextari operating base, but it contained equipment and samples she needed for her next breakthrough. Their subsonic communication, she explained to her strike team. It's not just a weapon against us, it's how they coordinate. If we can disrupt it, we'll give ourselves a massive advantage. The mission succeeded, though at heavy cost. 3 team members died ensuring Ilara could retrieve her specialized equipment. She worked for 72 hours straight, developing a device that would amplify certain bacterial responses to create ultrasonic pulses precisely calibrated to interfere with Vextari communication. When deployed in Philadelphia, one of the last Eastern processing centers, the results exceeded all expectations. The Vextari forces fell into disarray, their coordinated movements becoming chaotic and ineffective. The Defiance liberated thousands of captured humans before the aliens could regroup. 6 months into the invasion, humanity had transformed. The Vextari still controlled most urban centers, but their dominance was no longer absolute. Humans adapted faster than the ancient predators had thought possible. Ilara stood before the assembled Defiance leadership in their hidden Rocky Mountain Command Center. Representatives from resistance cells worldwide connected through secure channels. Her latest discovery might change everything. They communicate with their fleet through quantum entanglement, she explained. But the receivers are biological, grown organs within their command units, and those organs are vulnerable to the same bacterial weapons we've been developing. A former NASA engineer leaned forward. You're suggesting we can cut them off from their fleet? Ilara nodded. More than that, I believe we can send false signals, make them think Earth is becoming uninhabitable for them. She displayed a molecular model on the view screen. This modified strain attacks their communication organs but doesn't kill them immediately. Instead, it creates false sensory impressions. Psychological warfare, someone murmured. Precisely, said Ilara. For the first time in their evolutionary history, the hunters will experience fear. As dawn broke over the devastated landscape, defiant cells worldwide prepared for coordinated attacks. The bacterial weapons were distributed through underground networks, reaching every pocket of resistance. The hunters were about to become the hunted. Resistance and victory. The Vextari High Commander's Wrath all stood at the viewing platform of the primary command vessel hovering above what humans once called New York City. 8 cycles had passed since they'd identified this world as an optimal harvesting ground. Their scans had shown a planet teeming with soft-bodied, protein-rich bipeds. Perfect nutrition for the Vextari collective. It should have been simple. It had always been simple before. The resistance continues to spread, reported Sub-Commander Krevax, the iridescent plates on his neck flaring with agitation. 3 more harvesting centers compromised in the last rotation. 47 hunter units lost. Zrathel's sensory appendages rippled with irritation. In 15,000 cycles of cosmic predation, the Vextari had never encountered this scenario. Their evolutionary history as apex predators had made them efficient killers, but poor problem solvers. Adaptation came slowly to a species that had never needed to change. These humans, Zrathel hissed, they fight differently than other prey species. They sacrifice themselves willingly for tactical advantage. They use their own biological weaknesses as weapons. The command center behind them hummed with activity as Vextari operators monitored global operations. Increasingly, those operations were defensive rather than predatory. Something unthinkable was happening. The hunters were becoming cautious. What none of them realized was that microscopic invaders had already penetrated their command vessel's environmental systems, specially engineered bacteria released by a suicide mission 3 days earlier. The modified organisms were multiplying rapidly, preparing to attack the biological communications array that connected the ground forces to the fleet. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Montana wilderness, Dr. Ilara Chen had transformed the Defiance's command bunker into an advanced biotech laboratory. Government scientists who had once competed for grants and publications now worked shoulder to shoulder, focused on a single goal: turning Earth itself into a weapon against the invaders. Targeting their communications was just the beginning. Ilara explained to General Santos, formerly of the Philippine Army and now the Defiance's chief military strategist. We've learned their entire technology is semi-biological. Their ships, weapons, even their environmental suits, all grown rather than manufactured, all vulnerable to specific microbial attacks. Santos studied the molecular models projected above the workstation. How quickly can we weaponize this knowledge? We already have, Ilara said, gesturing to the production lab where volunteers worked around the clock, cultivating the engineered bacteria in vats. The challenge isn't creation, it's delivery. Marcus entered the room, his once lanky frame now hardened by months of field operations. The tunnel networks are complete in 17 major cities, he reported. The Vextari still don't understand how extensively humans have modified urban underground spaces. They think in terms of hunting grounds, not infrastructure. This had proven to be one of humanity's greatest advantages. While the Vextari dominated the skies and surface, humans had retreated into subway systems, sewers, and bunkers, spaces the aliens found difficult to navigate and monitor. What about Operation Trojan? Asked Santos. The capture teams are in position, Marcus replied. They're ready to move on your command. Operation Trojan represented their boldest strategy yet, capturing Vextari alive to use as biological delivery systems. Defiant scientists had developed a contagious bacterial strain that would spread through the aliens' communal living spaces, affecting their neurological systems without killing them immediately. The psychological component is critical, Ilara emphasized. The bacteria doesn't just attack their bodies, it alters their sensory perception. They'll experience hallucinations, paranoia, confusion. For a species that has evolved as perfect predators, the loss of sensory reliability will be devastating. The operation launched simultaneously across 7 continents. Capture teams lured isolated Vexteri hunting parties into traps, subdued them with concentrated bacterial aerosols, infected them with the engineered contagion, and released them to return to their bases. The effects manifested within days. Reports filtered in from observation posts worldwide. Vexteri units firing on each other, cowering from invisible threats, abandoning harvesting operations without apparent cause. Their rigid hierarchy began to fracture as communication broke down. Aboard the primary command vessel, Zrathal was the first to notice something wrong with the neural interface connecting them to ground forces. The bioengineered organ pulsed erratically, transmitting fragmented and contradictory data. The prey, they've somehow affected the synapse web, Zrathal rasped to the ship's biological engineer. Is this possible? Can primitive organisms develop such weapons? Before the engineer could respond, alarm pheromones flooded the command center. The bacteria had reached the vessel's life support systems, releasing compounds that triggered panic responses in Vexteri physiology. Across the globe, the pattern repeated in every Vexteri base, ship, and processing center. The invaders, who had never known fear, who had evolved as the universe's perfect killers, experienced terror for the first time. The counteroffensive began 3 days later. Defiance forces emerged from hiding, armed with increasingly sophisticated biological weapons. Former construction workers operated retrofitted drilling equipment to breach Vexteri underground fortifications. Farmers deployed crop dusters to spread bacterial agents over alien encampments. Teachers coordinated communication between resistance cells. Every human skill, every profession, found purpose in the fight. What made the resistance especially effective was its decentralized nature. Without a single leader or command structure to target, the Vexteri couldn't eliminate the threat with precision strikes. Humanity operated as a distributed network, adapting locally while maintaining global coordination through simple but effective communication protocols. 8 months after the initial invasion, the first Vexteri ship attempted to leave Earth's atmosphere. Its biological engines, compromised by targeted bacterial infection, failed catastrophically. The massive vessel crashed into the Atlantic Ocean, causing a tsunami that devastated what remained of the eastern seaboard, but signaling something profound. The predators were trying to retreat. "They're running," Marcus said, watching satellite footage of the crash in the Defiance Command Center. "I never thought I'd see it." "They're not just running," Ilara corrected, studying data from monitoring stations worldwide. "They're dying. Their biology can't adapt quickly enough to our counterattacks." Conventional wisdom suggested this was the moment to press the advantage, to eliminate the Vexteri entirely. General Santos advocated for developing weapons that would ensure total victory, compounds that would specifically target and destroy every trace of Vexteri biology on Earth. Ilara disagreed. "Extermination makes us no better than them," she argued during a heated leadership council. "We need to show them something their evolutionary history has never taught them. Mercy as strength, not weakness." Her alternative proposal was radical. Engineer a final bacterial agent that would render Earth permanently uninhabitable to Vexteri biology without killing those already present. Create a biological barrier that would protect humanity from future invasions while allowing the stranded aliens to leave on human terms. The debate raged for days while fighting continued worldwide. In the end, Ilara's approach narrowly won support. The Defiance would force surrender, not annihilation. The ultimatum was delivered through the Vexteri's own communication systems, now hijacked by human technicians. The message was simple. Earth would become permanently toxic to their species within 30 days. They could remain and die, or accept human assistance in modifying their remaining vessels for departure. High Commanders wrathful, their sensory organs dulled by infection and their forces decimated by resistance, became the first Vexteri in recorded history to negotiate with prey. The terms were not negotiable: immediate cessation of all harvesting activities, withdrawal from human population centers, and biological containment protocols to prevent further spread of Earth's microorganisms to their fleet. The Vexteri, facing extinction, agreed. The exodus took nearly 3 months. Under careful supervision, the aliens consolidated their forces around 12 major landing sites globally. Humans provided the necessary biological shielding to protect their ships from further contamination, while ensuring the modifications would prevent any weapons from being deployed during departure. On the final day, as the last command vessel prepared to break atmosphere, Ilara stood at a monitoring station in what remained of Chicago's lakefront. The massive ship rose slowly, its once shimmering surface now dull and pitted from bacterial exposure. "They'll warn others about Earth," Marcus said, standing beside her. "Tell them we're not worth the trouble." Ilara shook her head. "They'll do more than that. They'll tell them we're dangerous, that humans don't just survive. They fight back. For the first time in their evolutionary history, the Vexteri have learned fear." As the ship disappeared into the clouds, she turned to the horizon where reconstruction efforts were already visible. Humans were rebuilding, not just structures but society itself. The invasion had unified humanity in ways nothing else could have. National borders, political differences, religious conflicts, all had been rendered meaningless against the existential threat. "We're sending vessels after them, aren't we?" Marcus asked quietly. Ilara nodded. "Observation probes only. We need to understand what else is out there." 1 year to the day after the first ships appeared in Earth's skies, humanity launched its first truly unified space program. Ships bearing the simple emblem of Earth, not any nation or corporation, began venturing beyond the lunar sphere. Armed with both advanced technology and biological defenses derived from the conflict, they carried a message to the stars. Earth was not prey. Humanity would not be harvested. The predators had awakened something far more dangerous than they had imagined. A species that turned adversity into advancement, that transformed survival into innovation. In her laboratory at the New Chicago Research Center, Dr. Ilara Chen mentored the next generation of scientists. Her focus had shifted from defensive applications to exploration technology. The universe was vast, filled with wonders and dangers alike. Humanity would face both with the same resilience that had saved Earth. The Vexteri thought they were the apex predators of the universe. She told her students as they prepared experiments for the first deep space biological research vessel. They never understood the true nature of evolution. The most successful species isn't the strongest or fastest. It's the one that adapts. And humans may be the greatest adapters the universe has ever seen. Above them, through the laboratory skylight, stars twinkled in the night sky, no longer harbingers of doom, but beacons of possibility. The invasion had changed humanity forever, awakening both its capacity for unity and its determination to secure its place among the stars. The predators had come to feast on Earth. Instead, they had unleashed its potential.